Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron with Black Ice 8.6, Hearts of Iron 3. Okay, well, let's continue here. Italy's still trying to mess around in Wales. Wales is not a good place to invade because of this sort of mountainy, well, hilly, low infrastructure, relatively speaking. You know, we can't really see that because it's give up on that. Okay, we've run one here, good. And coastal submarine class has advanced. That is good. Grayed out. We're waiting for that one. Then we're gonna start. Well, we've got a lot of aircraft and stuff that's queued up, so we're not gonna add more to it. But when we do, we will start building more and better submarine types. Now, of course, with this, I guess if you disband it, you would get some of your manpower back. But in real life, of course, you pull the not-so-good submarines out because you don't want to lose the crews. And you can transfer the experienced crews into new stuff. Guess that's, to some degree, the difference with the callousness of gaming this way. Use them up. Oh, you join the fight too now that you're here. That heavy armor. Yeah. Dude, that heavy armor is just devastating. With the Tigers in it. That's why I created that division, just to have a few if and where needed. We just blast through. Okay, Bauer, you join the fight there. Kill him. Okay. That's better. We won the Battle of Jeddah. I thought we were going to the Battle of Jeddah. Won't be down here. Okay, well. Riyadh, we've got Riyadh. Okay, good. Now, shouldn't that basically put us in victory? Yeah, this is the path we want to take. Because it's going to be the fastest driving that should once we get across this little river. Okay. Whatever A mark is. Got an uprising. Okay. Yeah. Do attack there. So we enforce conquer on Saudi Arabia. And just as my sort of worries were, but my concerns, but it's fine. Because we got the important oil resources. And I can build more if I want to build more. Oil wells there. We would give them fuel for an exchange for money. Sure, we have plenty of fuel at the moment. Want more fuel? Fine. So, Iraq's grown. This is the one part I really didn't want them to have because they won't trade with me. This is the part I really wanted of Saudi Arabia because it has the oil, of course. Let's send you back up this way. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with you all, but There's sort of a port there. Got all these more divisions. I don't, you know, didn't need them at all. Really, I think I could have almost done it with just, maybe even done it best with one division. Let's not hang out in the desert. To there, so either they can join in for the India thing or get shipped out via ports. I don't know. Going after the capital. They should attack there. They're going to come down here to join in this fight across Deutschland as it charges across the world. Okay, we've won the Battle of Cape Town, which means they're going there. We won't occupy it for a little while. I think it's mountainous, isn't it? No, it's calling it urban, really? Yeah, I would have sort of... Why I sometimes think that they should be able to have multiple specialty thing, because there's Table Rock there. It's sort of mountainous down here. And all of our far-flung battles. Alright, well. You join that, you come up there, you come here. You're attacking there. You're defending there, good. You're out of supplies because you're supposed to be going to take it there. We are putting much more strain now that we moved some of the units from here. Into... Okay, we are here now. Now, this is here. Okay, landing craft models is improving. What I'm wondering is will we be able to invade distance-wise? What's nice, but I don't know. Well, I don't know what we'll need, quite honestly. I'm going to save it before we go for this. Okay, we want you on board. Want you on board. Fortunately, my one good Marine division currently available is sitting over in Singapore. I'm hoping some of these guys here maybe have anti-tank weapons. Hopefully we'll do well. The evasion, the elite infantry. If there is, what I want to do is get ashore fast and fight fast so that we won't get too much attack from others. Let's put this just right there. Concentration. Okay. Okay, well, there's a motorized, there's a heavy artillery, there's a motorized engineering unit, some anti-aircraft. There's maybe a bit more than just the garrison there, but probably the heavy artillery is attached to one of the garrison units. And, okay, well, let's see if my invasion force can get there and work. Well, we're going to save it beforehand. Just in case something goes super wrong, maybe I'll reload. Do remember to clear out the saves. I do periodically so they don't stack up, so that it doesn't crash. We're less likely to crash. Invasion, good, we have the range. Oh, and you're coming up to there. So that means this guy here. Attack. No, that's too far away. Oh, we'll attack here still. There is a destroyer, it looks like there, or two. Destroyer, I'm not worried about coming out and messing up my invasion. We can do the naval striking there, just to give us some air cover. How are we doing out here? I haven't totally forgotten about. East. Here. Well, what other victory we have? Okay, they're coming here. So you need to come here. We want to shut them down. Since we're puppeting them, I would like them to be in as good a shape as possible so that once I defeat them, they'll recover better, quicker, be a stronger ally. Tehran. This photo of Tehran. Okay, naval bomber prototypes have advanced. Good. Which, of course, does mean that they have, as it shows here, increased range. Medium bombers next. Cancel our trade agreement. Well, Portugal, are you still... You're still close enough to our faction, but we're still in the impossible. I think it's because there are maybe multiple things, but one of them may be because they're allied with Spain, and Spain is not yet in the faction. Spain may be the dominant partner there. Oh, upgrade 3 divisions there that are currently... One of them is currently being used effectively, so we will just upgrade this one. Großdeutschland and Hermannkrieg are being used in the east at the moment. The 60th Panzer Grenadier Division failed Herrenhalle. In mid-43, the division was ordered to be reformed as a Panzer Grenadier formation. The 60th Panzer Grenadier Division field Herrenhalle as part of the field Herrenhalle organization. Okay. Great. Now is that in our production queue, as I'm suspecting? Ooh. We're getting all these? Wow. Yes, please. Again, this is where most of my new growth is coming from. Of units. And small air search radar. Good. Yeah, might as well. Yes, you have energy. And you're out of supplies. 1 Well, what we need to do is these guys down to here. These guys down. And air supplies. The German forces. We've got the Cape, and they're counterattacking. We can get across the Orange River there. They moved their capital there, but we're already advancing on it slowly, maybe, but how are we doing up at Cape Verde? Okay, well, so far looking good. Flying boat prototypes, and which will increase their range as well. That is good. And we will shift this over to light bombers. We've got a lot of those guys too. Not really worried whether I win or I lose as the invasion of Cape Verde. What I'm worried about is a naval intervention sinking my my fleet. Why I wanted to get ashore and battle them as quickly and as fast as possible. And we won in the capital. Uh-oh. Okay, we've lost one landing craft and they've lost the USS Portland. Bismarck Tirpitz, they also have a more. Okay, well. Ooh, we got shot up a bit. Well, we're disrupting their organization and we're still coming ashore. Okay, well, we faced an uprising here of Boers. I don't know if the Boers are uprising against us. We're facing an uprising here of... Well, that means we need to run supplies. From here to Cape Town. That way we will be supplied. No, we're cut off. Alright, are they there yet? Yes, they're here. Okay. Air supply, so we can get supplies to there. And Can we get to here? Yes, just there. Air supply. Dump supplies into the... Okay, student, you could counterattack there. That'll be good. Now, one thing we are... So, oh, good. Yeah, you take them out. Okay. Now, forces under attack. Hopefully we'll do okay. Okay. Deutsches Pan... Oh, okay. This has happened because, I'm going to write this down right now. This is the air raid, aid and air bases to allies mod that I have, and the event coming up is from Tanganyika. So I have a conflict between for event description text numbers or something here. And I should, well, somehow I misblocked that up. Okay, well, should have blocked it. Shouldn't have the conflict there. But what this is, again, like I've talked about, not being able to build stuff in other countries. This was mostly designed to support an invasion of Southern Soviet Union, is sort of why I stuck. Did increase the airbase, pillbox, and anti-aircraft guns in Baghdad, and gave them some supplies and fuel down here. So they'll go from 6 to 1, but two air bases were up in here, which is currently under their control, but I think it'll work anyways. Yes. I didn't have a check for that, but it was if they were in the Axis after a certain amount of time, that would fire to help them out. So yes, we sent them some aid. They are better fortified against British attack, and better air based up and whatnot. Not that it really matters now, but well, useful for them. They got some more air bases. Okay. We won the second Battle of Tehran, or whatever that they're trying to. Hopefully, once we get another victory point, they'll collapse. Okay, Commerce Defense Advance, what current year are we on that, since we're doing a lot of that stuff? Yeah, I'm going to go one more with that. Spear coordinates our naval armament. Okay. After the lost battle of the Atlantic, the following lack of strategic orientation on how to continue the naval war, the Kriegsmarine gave up its autonomy for their armament and passed it on to responsibility of Speer's Reich Ministry of Armament and War Production in 1943, being favored by the new Naval High Commander Karl Donitz, the focus of the German naval armaments production concentrated on submarines in order to keep the high numbers of newly built U-boats. Incoming Spear continued production of obsolete submarines and did not manage to achieve a strategically relevant turn in the Reich Naval Armament. However, production numbers of the U-boats rose significantly due to rationalization of production chains and higher allocations of steel contingents to the Kriegsmarine. Okay. So, well, U-boat section building gain 30, ship building gain technologies 20, and overall naval build speed, which I believe affects U-boats. So, or I mean, affects all, not just U-boats, all speeds. So that's good for ourselves. That's of course Spear with donuts. Don't know who that is right offhand. Those two are naval personnel of somebody, and so is that by his cap. I think this is good, although we're not going to we're building more of a surface fleet. Yeah, this is also a thing. There is a strategic element of just getting enough U-boats out there, but if U-boats are vulnerable, submarines are vulnerable. If you poke a hole in a battleship, even if it's below the water line, you can plug that hole or close off the section of the ship, and the ship can theoretically, it depends on where it hits. Obviously, we talked earlier about the hood being hit in the magazine and it just blew up, but theoretically you can hit an area or the Bismarck being hit in the steering change and can't steer, and definitely couldn't repair at sea while moving, and they didn't want to stop in the middle of the ocean and try to do repairs with knowing that the British were closing on them, and that kind of thing. So, but theoretically, you can poke the holes and below the waterline, and the boat, whether it's a big or a small boat, can keep operating. Obviously a big ship, but or hit it above the superstructure, and even like, I don't know, take out a major naval turret, and the other turrets can keep operating. You poke a hole in a submarine. Yes, you can watch the submarine movies, and I've watched many of them. Yeah, you can close up the compartment and whatnot, but the way the batteries are, the way various things, they very quickly, minor holes, because of the pressure situation, become critical. So you can't, they're very vulnerable to attack. So you can't just suck it up and use inferior quality. If you're using inferior quality machine guns to some degree, they still work. Because of the ability to put enough escorts, even if you flood a convoy, you've got to super over flood it, and you're just, of U-boats, you just really can't effectively. So either the numbers have to be high in the beginning of this thing, when the Germans, the technology of the Allies weren't too great, or you need to have high quality, effective submarines. And we talked earlier about the callousness of these war games, and that I can continue to burn up, use up, and still have the manpower for the submarines, as opposed to decommissioning them and saving the manpower. And you got to remember, Donuts lost his son, I think his only son, in a U-boat. I believe he was the captain of it, but he was definitely an officer on board. So he knew the price, and he cared about his men. It wasn't, didn't care. And the U-boat service had the highest casualty death rates. Like 70% or something of German U-boaters died. And that's higher than anything but maybe the kamikazes or something. In the war, of any sort of branch of service. And so if we had a limitation on trained U-boat specialty manpower and other things as a war game, you would be bringing the outdated submarines home, not using them, or you would be finding less dangerous fields of operation. Now, of course, we have a bunch of these elements here that can be upgraded. Obviously, we're seeing the batteries being upgraded here, or that they can send them back in to be upgraded, which you really couldn't do a lot of that stuff in reality. You'd have to just build new boats, scrap them. So Speer's decision, of course, Speer doesn't understand, and I don't blame Speer for not understanding. I think Donuts was in agreement about it, because they delayed. They in 1940 captured the Dutch snorkels, and as somebody pointed out, it's not they didn't use the exact same model, but the research that the Dutch put in a working model definitely influenced German production. But Germany was like, yeah, well, that's going to take too long. We can't really, not that it's impossible, but it wasn't effective to take current U-boats and refit them with snorkels, and the interrupting the production lines due to the snorkels wasn't so necessary. We could just do more stuff. So they were wrong about that. And they all, I think, to a point, they knew that snorkels weren't a magic cure for anything. Where are you going over the Americans? You stop. Try to limit your range. I know we're at night, so you're operating the right time, night fighter, but don't want you fighting over American territory. So they really should have pulled the U-boats out. They really should have, by 43, they should have pulled them all back and converted over to newer styles that were quieter. The snorkels, I would say, don't help at all in attacking, for attack runs, because I don't know if you understand what the snorkel does. Submarines under the water cannot run their engines. They're diesel or gasoline. I think they're diesel, but they're diesel or they're gasoline engines underwater. So they have to run on batteries. And they would have to come up, well, out in the middle of the Atlantic. You can come up in the daytime early on because way too open. Also, the U.S. a lot of times ran on the day. Out in the Pacific, and it's way too open. So to charge up the batteries, and I know in the Mediterranean, both the British, Italians, and whoever else operating, generally speaking, ran on the surface at night and dove during the whole day, which limited their speed in two ways. One, theoretically, the electric engines could power the propellers at, or maybe even theoretically, even higher speeds, or rotation, than the diesel engines could. You can the way electric engines work, and it depends on what engine. You can dump a lot of power in and go a lot of fast, but it drains the batteries real fast. So if you want a full day's worth of maneuver time, you had to slowly put out the power. So that speeds down their ability to move subsurface. The other thing, which especially with the German naval boats, is that they were inefficient at subsurface. They had the big conning towers, the anti-aircraft guns, the surface gun, and all the rest of the junk you see up on there. The deck itself, because if you look at a modern submarine, there's no deck. There's no ability to parade, because you may have seen some vessels parade the troops out on the deck. It's the submarine, get everybody up there. especially not underway on a modern submarine. It's it's the most roundest possible hole that you can get. Yes, you can walk on the top, but it's not a flat surface. So all that extra junk that sort of, because way really a U-boat is a surface boat that can go underwater, as opposed to a submarine whose surface once in a while. By the end of the war, the high-level prototypes that the Germans were developing were totally going down that road of fixing all those problems. But that's really, they only start really doing it once this 43 effort just gets clobbered. So all that extra drag on the hydrodynamics of the vessel underwater slows them down. Once you have the periscope, is that you can plow along with your diesel engines going at full revs. Now you're making lots of noise, so you can't approach an enemy convoy doing it. But you can get out of Lorient or Brest or whatever in the daylight with air patrols, and it's really hard with radar, and somewhat hard, and you have to get really on top of them to see the conning tower wake. Now, the rougher the seas breaks up the conning tower wake, but also supposedly the big problem with the snorkels, the submariners hated it, because when a wave would come over it, there was sort of like a ball filled with air or something like that would float up and would seal up the snorkel so it wouldn't intake water into it. But that would create an overpressure in the submarine. So each time that happened with the cycle of the waves, because in the North Atlantic they can be higher than you'd want the snorkel to be out of the water, and would constantly be popping your ears. So it was not fun. Better than being sunk and attacked, but not fun. And you could, I don't know how well, but depending on how much metal is out of the water, the radar can pick it up, but I don't think at a very long range. At a very close range, I think they could. So it works out, and of course what would change a lot of this was simply changing your Enigma code so that the Allies weren't reading to know where you were. So, but yeah, we'll go with this. We'll pay the metal and the supplies. I don't think this will hurt us in our naval building program. A lot more surface. We're still doing submarines. They're still useful. Okay, now that you guys have some supplies, you're going to join in this attack with them. Students who still don't have supplies. They'll be flying some in. Maybe I need better units. Let's see how the battle's doing. If we can break these guys quick enough, I want to do this. Okay, heavy anti-aircraft armament. 4, of course, naval vessels. A cruiser, that's right. Okay, stop that. Yeah, I know we're out of date on a lot of those things. We're way out of date. Well, let's start through some of this. I want high-tech aircraft to win that battle over Britain. And more technology capability, okay. More research. So now I almost, not entirely, but I forgot to keep pushing units forward. There we go there. Well, see here. You take, or you come here. Oh good, we got there. Cochin or whatever, yeah. Move up. Let's look for resources here. We've gotten a few here by getting these. This will really help us out with rare materials. At least this is 5, 12. At least the base. There we go. The victory points, I really just want to, okay. Defeat them so that we win. How many victory points is this? Just 2, okay. Oh, we still haven't gotten this one up here, okay. It's just 1 probably, but yeah. That's okay, we need to get that. We give them money for crude oil. Yes, we'll do that. We want oil. I want oil, don't want fuel, preferably. Yeah, a lot of stuff to upgrade. Get done with Iran first. You guys all support the attack. We want to get this territory back. Iraq. Yeah, we're losing a few provinces, but we're coming in to take them back. Springbok. Oh, we now have fuel here while you're. I have an event that hasn't fired, and I don't know why. I'm just seeing this here. I have a Sure Abteilung 500, which was it? I don't know. I got to go in and look at that. Let me write that down. That's supposed to fire because that was the sort of the first pre-whatever early tank Panzer Abteilung, and it's not showing up. And it should be before the other ones that the other event modulator added. There's sort of a training command. I don't know. I forget what we wrote about it, but I know it exists. Okay, light armor designs have advanced, and which is good and grayed out. I'm sort of going to wait for 44 to start doing more of the armor text because we're doing pretty well in comparison to the others. It appears in most combat, self-propelled rocket artillery, ammunition. Oh, we need to do that more. Okay, well, self-propelled. Okay, we'll push ahead on that. I don't want to do that. So, yeah, we'll form it. And what does we give them energy? Sure, Argentina, you can have energy. I also think part of the reason Portugal doesn't think it can join us is like some of its colonies, like in India. It thinks it's going to lose them to the British. This may not help us too much. Okay, we're down to one defensive unit. We're getting shore bombardment. Good. And they're after being reorganized. Okay. Uh-oh. We've lost very high popularity. It's gonna hurt our research. Okay, the monthly Serb outbreak. Good, we won there. One there. Okay, well, you go after those. You can support the attack. I want you to move. You can go up to there. There we go. Order placed. Finland, yeah, we'll do that. I wouldn't mind Finland having a few more aircraft. Not that they're doing much with it, but okay, well, let's check out some of these. Don't want Deutschland or Gross Deutschland. Hitler. We'll do the Hitler Jugend. That doesn't, I don't think, take anything away. Not that I'm not gonna upgrade Gross Deutschland, or which I want to, or Hermann Goering. It just, they're in the middle of a campaign right now, operating effectively, I think. Okay. 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitler Jugend, also known as the Baby Division, the 12th SS Panzer Division was formed in '43 as part of the plan to develop a military formation made up completely of Hitler Youth members born in 1926. Yes, okay, we want to do this. Now, I would say that there are production too. Okay. Okay, a bunch of other vessels there. How do I put this? It has multiple facets to the expansion at this late time period. Part of it is a recruiting tool. It's Germany's in desperate need right now. You gotta plug the the holes on the front, that kind of thing. But it's also part, and I don't, at this point in July '43, I don't know how diluted it was. By July '44, in my opinion, it's diluted. But the thought that was being put out in the propaganda, in the high command at least, that the Wonder weapons were coming. And, there was whispers and talk about them, I think, everywhere. The V1, the V2, the jets, and all of that kind of stuff. I think they thought that, oh, the V1s, we're just going to destroy all of British industry and just smash all their air bases, so all the bombing's going to stop. And obviously, that doesn't affect American industry, but, it destroys all of the British industry, and we're going to make the Allied ports uninhabitable, whether with the V weapons or the, the Blitz bomber, the Arado, whatever, nice bomber, actually fairly nice bomber, medium light, but it's jet, so it's very hard to catch, and it's also fairly hard to accurately engage with anti-aircraft weapons. So we're just, going to bomb all this stuff out. We're going to turn the air tide war, which will allow us to get our production up and going and throw the Americans out of, Italy and push back the Soviets. So that they were still thinking in these terms, a lot of this stuff. Now, looking back at it, I have, of course, as you talked about, thinking that, well, the Americans are, of course, going to win by this point. If, by 43, what was going on in World War II, not what's going on in this fantasy game that we're playing, but what was going on in 42 or 43, July, there's no doubt in my mind that the Americans are going to win. And I think there's no doubt in the Americans' mind either. And I think there's no doubt in Churchill's mind that the Americans are going to win. I don't know for sure how the Soviets viewed it. I don't know if they really understood what America was doing and capable of doing. I don't know whether post-war's action shows that they understood that or not. I don't know, but the issue isn't in doubt. But the German High Command and the Nazi element, and I think there is this element with wanting to expand the Waffen-SS as a protection against the army or the Wehrmacht in general to the Nazi regime. And some of this may come down to the sort of loyalty at the end of the collapsing, but I think that's sort of even more of an afterthought. I think it's to have a loyal military force that can stand up to the army trying to overthrow the Nazis. I think there's that in the post-war world. I think Nazi thought, and it's not just Hitler, but it's the sort of the Nazis, they were thinking. Hitler was very fearful of the military until they were able to institute, generally speaking, a draft. And getting a lot of people, the German people. That's how he saw it. He saw it as the German people, but of course part of it is the stormtroopers in the army. But he saw it as the German people because he thought he had the confidence of the German people. But so long as the military was sort of an elite separatist clique, and most of the soldiers were limited and few and sort of belonging to this clique, he was very sort of scared of the army. But once they got the draft in, so by around 36, he's starting to feel confident. Not that he doesn't think that there isn't a possibility of a military coup if things go super wrong. If he declares war against France and the first offensive battles are just bloodbaths. Oh, charge in with all your tanks and all the tanks die. And do that again and all the tanks die. Then I think he would see that, oh, this tank warfare doesn't work out like we thought. There could be a coup against them. Or if France is rolling deep, it's crossed the Rhine and pushing in, and the army's going, hey, we're not going to die for your Nazi regime. We're going to do a coup. At that point, a failure of the regime, I'm sure he was still well aware that there could be an army coup. But so long as there wasn't a failure, generally speaking, in the National Socialist regime, he no longer feared an army coup, because now the masses, the German people, are in the army, and it's not just an elite group. But this sort of changes, I think, with the thinking, and I don't know how much in Hitler's eyes, but I do think in Himmler's and some of the other Nazi types, that you've now created this somewhat detached from the rest of the populace brotherhood of soldiers. And they realize this from World War I as well, that all these soldiers now have this shared brotherhood, and they now are loyal to their officers who do well. The officers aren't wasting German lives. More the stupid Hitler orders that waste German lives in like Stalingrad. And trust me, this Stalingrad comes into the calculation because everybody knows that Hitler orders them to stay and fight and only authorizes a breakthrough until it's much too late to even organize one up effectively. And they try to do the breakout and breakthrough to break out, and it's known, at least within the army circles and down fairway, that this is a Hitlerite order and that they should have broken out immediately, and Hitler prevented it. So now you have the idea that a post-war Germany, maybe the army could revolt, and a bunch of police units aren't going to stop the army, but a Waffen-SS that is now larger could stop the army. And is there enough support in a successful German conquest to actually create a civil war? That's another question. It's one thing to do a coup against the top, especially as, and go back to some of my reading. Before the war starts, Hitler and the National Socialists are trying to dismantle Christianity's hold on Germany. They want to de-Christianize Germany. The Germans in Germany. And trust me, and anybody who puts out Hitler was a Christian, he was never a Christian. That doesn't mean he didn't go to church at some point in his life, but he was not a Christian. He did not believe in Christianity. I just don't mean he didn't have Christian feelings. I mean he didn't believe in Christianity. He was some sort of neo-paganist. I know some people argue that he was more of an atheist. I think he was actually a neo-paganist. I believe he believed in higher powers. This is why, and anyone who argues over the idea that he may be just an atheist type person, Hitler believed he had that sort of supreme protection from some higher powers. This goes back to all of his assassination attempts, including the last big Stauffenberg, famous one where the bomb blew up in the room. But even before this, he thought he was protected. He thought he was guided by a higher power. So he's a neo-paganist. In that, I don't know exactly, or saying that it's Himmler's version of neo-paganism, and whether he believes in Thor and that's the god of thunder, the Odin or Woden, as the head of all the gods, and he believes in all that. I don't know that he believes in all those gods, but he does believe in some sort of neo-paganistic spirituality, neo-paganistic protectivity of himself and his mission. He believes a lot of this stuff. He really, really does. I don't think he goes as far into the occult as his #1 devoted follower, Rudolf Hess, does. He's very much an occultist. Himmler's also an occultist. Maybe not quite as much as Hess, but maybe more. But so he doesn't necessarily go down all the occult elements of the Nazism, or factions of the Nazis have. But he is definitely on board with a neo-paganistic spiritual protector of him, of Germany, of his mission. He very much believes in it. He very much, at the end of his life, believes that the spirit was guiding him and protecting him, but the German people failed him, didn't live up to it. They didn't have the willpower that he had, that was called for in this great mission, if you will. And so now I think this is all bunk, but this is what Hitler believes, and I really believe Hitler believes that. Now I could be wrong. Nobody's inside Hitler's head, but we're taking what Hitler says and the way Hitler reacts to things and people's understanding of that. So, and yes, various groups project onto Hitler. Some of the anti-Christian type groups that project, well, Hitler was a Christian. Hitler had a National Socialist Christian church, yes. But it was like what's happening in China now. I don't know if you realize this and can see some of the stuff, is China is trying to grab hold of Christianity in China and China-file them, sinocize it. They've actually said this in their latest party of Congress, that if it's too Christian, as it is currently, it's a threat because it's an outside force. They are trying to make it more Chinese in some ways, which includes changing the doctrine and the dogma. Don't know the details of that, but that's how they're looking at it. Hitler was trying to do that, but ultimately to erode it down and destroy it. So all of the Christian National Socialists, and you can see them up and through to the end of the war, there's continued movement of that. These people are either on board with destroying Christianity for this new National Socialist spiritualism, that I'm calling neo-paganism, but spiritualism, or they're just being duped. They're strong nationalists, but they're just being duped. So he's eroding the Christian church actively, as effectively, and as far as he can push the people without a backlash. As soon as he gets, and he does it in different regions at different times, he or the Nazi Party does. Once they get too much backlash, they retreat. Now, once the war with the Soviet Union starts, and the high casualties start, and some of the setbacks start, he now, and the National Socialists now re-embrace Christianity, because one, Christianity supports the war against the atheists, so he wants that support, and two, he wants the comforting aspect of Christianity to support the grieving families, the soldiers that are praying for protection in combat, all of that stuff. So he backs off and really gives a lot of support to the Christian church. And I say that by meaning both the Catholic and the Protestant churches in Germany. And so they get newfound clout and access to society again. But it is, in my opinion, and I think everybody else's who looks at this, that he's very much planning on pulling that back once the war's over and done with, particularly in the East. Once the victory happens. In the post-victory regime, he is going to go back into eroding away Christianity and Christianity's hold on the German people. The German army, well, the Luftwaffe is, at its founding, a National Socialist organization. I'm not saying there aren't, I don't know quite offhand how many, chaplains in the Luftwaffe, if there were even chaplains in the Luftwaffe, but it is a National Socialist organization from the beginning. So it's on board with Nazification of Germany. The Kriegsmarine is small. I can almost say it doesn't count. There is an attempt at national socialization of it. You can see some of that in the Das Boot movie. It's somewhat, especially early on, the Navy likes all the attention that the Nazis want to give it, but it's not going to really contribute much to a coup or an anti-coup. The army, as we talked about Hitler, once you get the masses in it, but still, it has a much stronger Christian core in its officer corps and its traditions. So Hitler fears this. So Hitler fears the idea that if it becomes the idea that National Socialism is going to destroy Christianity, at least within Germany. I don't think they were going to try to destroy it within rather Catholic fascist Italy or Catholic nationalist Spain or anything. They just, not that they were going to try to destroy Christianity as a whole, it just was going to be not a German thing, not a National Socialist thing, wherever National Socialism was. I think they were going to embrace the neo-paganism that's now cropped up in, particularly in Norway, with the death metal movement, but the sort of neo-paganism there, they saw a kindredship with it and wanted to erode Christianity in that format. And I think they may be fearing the German army's reaction to it. I think they may be fearing the German army's, if it gets too much in their face, the war crimes and how far it wasn't just a few undesirable Jews they were going to get rid of. It was going to be much more and massive and continuing, and they're afraid of a reaction by that. And that's why I think they were pushing up the Waffen-SS. So it looks like we've gone on long enough for an episode. Those are my thoughts on why the SS gets a new lease on life. And I also think there's an element of they've got that spirit that I was talking about that Hitler saw, and wanting to that spirit of we're going all out to win this war, we're on board with this, where they didn't see this in the army, and so why they were willing to continue to expand the Waffen-SS when they weren't, when they should have been expanding some of the more regular stuff that had better training, better experience. Okay, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoy this episode and other ones. Get history talk while we game, or game a little bit while we talk a lot about history, however you want to see this. And I do, mentioning that, I do want this to be a conversation, so please post questions, comments, suggestions, and ideas. And of course, thanks just for watching, and thanks for liking the videos. I do appreciate that. It helps it out. And it also helps out if you would please, on some other format, post a link to this or some other video and say why you're doing it. Because I made a stupid statement, or maybe because I'm making sense somewhere. And you can, some places even do it with a time code to that. Greatly appreciate that if you would. Like to continue the conversation in other formats and bring more people in. Thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.